Welcome into another edition of Jacket Sports Weekly. The football team winning 3 games in a row. We'll also have all of our analysts here to give their insight on their sports.
The soccer teams have a little bit of an off week this week, but we'll check in with the cross-country teams who are getting ready for the PAC Championships in a couple of weeks. I'm Dylan Cleveland.
And I'm Hugh O'Neill, and you're watching Jacket Sports Weekly.
Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly. Now it's time to take a look at the football team who picked up their third straight win and their second consecutive week that they scored 24 points. The final was 24-21 in their homecoming game against Carnegie Mellon. And finally, Hugh, we're starting to see this offense put together some drives, and really it's resulting in wins.
Yeah, 24-21, those were the scores in the past 2 games. Like you mentioned, CMU and then Teal the week prior. And we're seeing this football team kind of piece together. Something I'm going to mention here in a little bit is the defense of the football team just doing a spectacular job. But Tyler Perrone, 22 of 41, 222 yards. And something we don't really see from him a lot is him rushing. And he had a rushing touchdown, passing touchdown as well. So really we kind of saw the offense just compile together and have a great showing. Chad Walker, 61 rushing yards and a touchdown. And the receivers, it just wasn't one main guy. It was Cole Booth, Jawan Jones, Nick Moretti, all with 5+ receptions, 55 yards plus. So just a whole group effort from the team.
Now, you mentioned the defense. They definitely have to take some credit for this win. John Glenn Davis led the defense with 10 tackles. Garrett Hepner had 8. Andrew Brinsick had 7, but he also had a very big interception in the game. After Waynesburg kicked the game-winning field goal with about a minute and a half to go, he intercepted it. They were able to go into some couple rushing plays, and that really ended the game for them. So you wanted to touch on this defense. How can they continue to be as successful as they were Saturday?
Now, you say successful as Saturday, but really, as a whole, on the whole season, they've been doing pretty well. They're third in the PAC in scoring defense, only 21.5 points allowed per game, and they're fitting with that 21 points in the past 2 games. And then first in total defense. Total defense means yards allowed per game, 278. And just doing a great, spectacular job in that aspect. Now, the defense held Alex Klein, the quarterback from CMU, to 161 yards through the air. And that's just really good when you see that, and not a lot of rushing yards combined for that. So just the defense altogether, if they can continue this with Grove City and St. Vincent coming up, this team could have 5 wins.
And that was even without Tyler Smith for a little bit out of that game. He left the game due to an injury for a little bit. He did eventually come back, but when your top guy on defense is able to go out and you have other guys step up, things are definitely looking good. Garrett Guthrie with the game-winning field goal. Got to give him credit as well. It was a 35-yarder to propel Waynesburg to the win. So as you said, Grove City and St. Vincent, 2 teams that haven't played as well this season. What do you think the strength might be heading into those games?
We'll mainly look at that ahead when we have Alex Lyons coming up in a little bit. But the strength, just continue to do what the team is doing.
So now we'll take a switch and we will look at the men's and women's soccer teams, starting, Hugh, with the women.
Yeah, Dylan, the women's team was in action over the past week. However, losing to Westminster, that's something we don't want to see. But it was in overtime, so we see the team in a good grind, fighting the whole way through. It was a very close game. Jill Moyer, 3rd goal of the year. And Tegan Jenner, she had her 2nd goal of the year. So we see some of these sophomores, they're just doing a really good job putting in the points after last year, not having Mel Byler returning, and some of the seniors, they're really taking a good job of stepping into those leadership roles just as sophomores. But Courtney Seifert had 6 saves in that game. However, Westminster was able to get a goal in overtime.
Yeah, and they were, and eventually, as you said, that caused Waynesburg just their first loss in the PAC. But going back to those younger girls, you have some freshmen in Tegan Jenner and Leisha Wagner who have been providing some scoring, but also the sophomores. You have to give them some credit. Jill Moyer, Emily Hill, all 4 of those girls have really been leading this team offensively, and you can't let the defense slip by either. Jess Silbaugh, along with others, and Courtney Seifert has been playing a lot better this year than in goal than last. So overall, this team is looking good. They had the loss, but I think they can move on from that.
So that was a very even game, but looking at the stats, the team is 8th in the PAC in shots, 7th in goals per game, 4th overall in the PAC, but as the women's team on the categories pretty low but has a higher record, the men's team pretty high in the categories in the PAC but has a lower record in the PAC. The men's team is 4-7 overall, 1-1 in the PAC, and leads the PAC in shots with 186 and shots on goal and 94. However, has allowed the most goals almost. So those things coincide, and it's not good to have both of them. Now, you wish the defense could be a little better like the women's. However, it's not just like that.
No, it wasn't, and it was a 4-0 loss, so they didn't get on the board in that game either. The defense let the team go down 3-0 in just the first half alone. Westminster able to add one more in the second. Adam Dolan saved 7 of 11 shots on goal. You can't ask for much more from a goaltender. You got to get him some offense, and that's definitely what we'll be looking for Waynesburg to do moving ahead.
Yeah, freshman Jonathan Campbell came in, and he only allowed 1 goal. That was on 3 shots, but the team has some winnable games in the future with Bethany on Wednesday and at Teal on Saturday. But that's going to do it for soccer. When we come back, Alex Lyons will be here on Jacket Sports Weekly.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
We're back on JSW. Alex Lyons here this week for football. Alex, tell me about the football team.
Yeah, the football team, 3 wins in a row. I mean, something I really didn't expect to see at my time here at Waynesburg, the way things were going. But under Tyler Perrone, it looks like this offense is starting to get rolling, and the defense continues to put up the numbers in the games. 3 turnovers this week, including a big game, pretty much sealing interception by the Con Department's very own Andrew Brinsick. He's played a big part on that defense all year. Ty Smith, we saw him go in and out with some injuries throughout the game. Luckily, was able to finish that one. John Glenn Davis made some huge plays. The defense really was able to step up, and with Tyler Perrone taking full sails of the offense and Chad Walker seeming to come around a little bit, I like the way this team's rolling.
Now, you mentioned the defense and their play. They've really been consistent throughout the year. It's just been a matter of getting this offense going. Have you seen anything in particular with the defense that they've been doing well lately?
I think the battle up front they've done a very good job at. As we saw in the Geneva game, they were able to really do well on the defensive front and in their front 7 to stop the run game. And that's something they're going to have to look to do this week when they take on Grove City and Wesley Schools. I mean, he's a very powerful running back, and Waynesburg's done a good job at stopping the run this year. And if they want to get that 4th straight win and go for a chance at 5 against St. Vincent the week after, they're really going to have to shut down Wesley Schools.
Now, do you think the next time we will be here in 2 weeks, Waynesburg will have 5 wins in a row?
I think it's very possible. The big game is going to be this Saturday. Westminster lost to Grove City, so Grove City in risk of a bit of a letdown game. But if Waynesburg beats Grove City, I like their chances going 5 in a row. If not, I believe Waynesburg will have 4 wins by the time after the St. Vincent game.
Thank you, Alex. And when we come back, Corey Fisher will be here in studio to talk cross country on JSW.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Back on Jacket Sports Weekly, Corey Fisher, our men's cross-country analyst, in to talk about the team's performance at DeSales this weekend. They were at the DeSales Invitational. Corey, what can you say about the team?
Yeah, the Yellow Jackets went out to DeSales, and they had a big matchup with 26 teams, so 25 other teams. They placed 11th out of 26, so not a bad showing for them. They had their scoring top 7, which were 44th, 62nd, 66th, 71st, 81st, and rounding out 114th and 121st. And that was out of 263 runners, so it was a big field. And 11th out of 26 teams coming from 3 different conferences is a pretty good showing for them. Now, the sophomore show still continued. 5 out of the scoring 7 for Waynesburg were sophomores, led by Nate Jesslin, who posted 44th out of 263 runners, and then Matt Durgan, who was 62nd with a time of 28 and 28. Jordan Payne, who was also a sophomore, was finished 66th with 28 minutes and 47 seconds. Matt Collum, another sophomore, Kyle Warmbian, the 5th sophomore, who finished 71st and 81st. Now, Silas May is a freshman who we saw at the second race of the year, got back in the scoring 7 for Waynesburg. He finished 114th, so for him that was something to be proud of, especially in a big race like that. And then finishing out the Waynesburg scoring 7 was Jared Scott, a junior, who finished 121st out of the 263 runners.
So we see this team getting better. Do you think it's going to continue this towards PAX?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, it's going to help whenever the races continue to get smaller. They go to Oberlin this weekend, Saturday, October 13th, and they have another really big matchup. I think they're pulling 4 different conferences into that race. So they're playing big right now, which I think is good for the team and training for the team. But then when they get in the pack play, they're going to be used to bigger play, which means they're going to go with that smaller, and they're going to continue to get to the top of the scoring board.
All right, Corey, thank you for your input. Once again, the men's cross-country team at the Oberlin Inter-Regional Rumble this weekend. We'll be back on Jacket Sports Weekly with more.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
We're back on Jacket Sports Weekly. We're not confused, but over the weekend at the DeSales Invitational, there was a lot of confusion. Mish, do you want to talk about the confusion?
Oh my goodness, tons of discrepancy in regards to the times of Yellow Jacket runners, especially on the women's side, and nobody really had any idea what place Waynesburg was in the majority of the weekend and into this new week. But Waynesburg did finish 5th out of 27 teams I should say, at the DeSales Invitational last Saturday, and had 5 runners place in the top 50. They were led by freshman Aubrey Wingart. No surprise there. 15th out of 245 runners. She's still rolling a time of 23 minutes 37 seconds. Was a huge asset for the Jackets so far in 2018. King George, Virginia native, has been excellent, first among Yellow Jacket runners in every single race in which she's participated. Although there are 2 extremely important issues to address, and that's 2 injuries to Yellow Jacket runners. 2 seniors did not finish the race. Tegan Simonton, who's been in the top 3 for Waynesburg in every race that she's finished, was left out of the race, or did not finish the race, I should say. And then Liz Trump, who's been flirting with the 6th or 7th spot in every race that she's ran in, did not finish the race either. So that's an important concern for the Yellow Jackets going down the stretch.
Mitch, we see this team just show a lot of depth, whether it's the juniors and seniors and now freshmen and sophomores coming along too. How valuable is this going to be heading into the latter part of the season?
Well, it's extremely valuable because there's such a young core with these Yellow Jackets, and they can probably win races. And even though Tegan Simonton and Liz Trump are super important, it's youth that's leading this team right now. All of the top 6 runners that finished the race for Waynesburg in the DeSales Invitational were either a freshman or a sophomore, 3 from each category. So a successful day for the young group.
Successful Yellow Jackets. We'll move on to volleyball with their success over the past week on Jacket Sports Weekly.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Back on JSW, it's time to break down the volleyball team that picked up its 4th win of the season, something we haven't seen them do in a long time.
Yeah, Dylan, a 3-1 win over the LaRoche College Red Hawks, not the Red Sox. The first loss, they lost the first set 25-13, which isn't great. And then they rebounded extremely well. Won the next three 25-16, 25-23, and 25-18. But perhaps the biggest takeaway in that match, Jordan Wiley, Hannah Burr, and Lexi Waldman, 17, 16, and 15 kills respectively, all of whom had season highs. They only had one block in the entirety of the match, but it turned out that it didn't matter because you had 3 women with 15-plus kills, which is probably the most impressive stat or nugget, if you will, that this team has had all season. They lost the match before that to St. Vincent, but that was 3-2, and that was the first time since 2015 that a Waynesburg University volleyball match went to 5 sets in a PAC against a PAC team.
Now, Jack, you mentioned going to 5 sets. Do you think this year will be the year that Waynesburg finally wins a PAC game?
If it happens, it's not going to happen in these next 2, Hugh. This Tuesday, they travel to Bethany to take on the Bison, and then Thursday they come back home against Westminster. Bethany's 14-8, 7-2 in the PAC. They're second place is where that ranks them. Katie Sparks is the number 1 kills leader in the President's Athletic Conference. And then Thursday it gets even tougher. Westminster is 9-0 in the PAC, 22-1 overall. And as I said, Katie Sparks, number 1 in PAC kills. Number 2, number 3, and number 4, Delaney Saxton, Riley DeGeorge, and Maya Stewart all play for Westminster. So like you said, Hugh, it could happen towards the end of the season, but these next 2 is going to be extremely tough.
We will see what happens with the volleyball team, definitely showing some signs of competitiveness. When we come back, Dakota Kiefer will come in to talk about women's soccer.
No more pencils, no more books, no more teachers, dirty looks. School's out for summer.
What this place needed was better graduation rates. So we worked with schools like Henry Ford High, and now they're up 18%. To help us do more good this year, go to unitedway.org because great things happen when we live united.
From volleyball to soccer, now we have Dakota Kiefer here in studio. Dakota, what do we have on soccer over the past week and looking forward?
Yeah, so they kind of had a little bit of an off week, if you say. There was one game they played, but they began PAC play on September 29th versus St. Vincent, and this is the men's team I'm going to be talking about. They won 6-0 in dominating fashion, but St. Vincent isn't very good. They sit at 1-10-1 on the year. Then the men's team went on to play a really good team in Westminster, and Westminster is currently 7-3 and 1-1 in the PAC. Waynesburg has been shut out in 2 of the last 3 games and 5 times overall this year. And they dominated St. Vincent, but it was completely different at Westminster. They were outshot 22-4 overall and 11-1 on shots on goal. You're not going to win many games with 1 shot on goal. Now, looking forward to their games coming up, they have Bethany this Wednesday. I think Bethany is a very manageable game for the Yellow Jackets. Bethany has been shut out 6 times on the year. They're 4-7-2 on the year and 1-1 in the PAC. Their only win came against Geneva, who is 5-5-1 and 2-1 in the PAC. But the dangerous thing is that Geneva beat Westminster, who dominated Waynesburg. So while I think it can be manageable, it will still be very challenging. Now moving over to the women's side of things, they also fared well against St. Vincent as they beat them 4-1. St. Vincent 4-6-1 and 0-2-1 in PAC play, so they're not that great either on the women's side. And in St. Vincent, the Jackets were outshot 9-7, but they won the battle on the goal. The Jackets had 5 shots on goal and 4 of them went in the net, so they were very efficient with their shooting. Alicia Wagner picked up 2 goals in the game, and the Jackets then went on to play a very hard battle against Westminster, who's in first place in the PAC. The Jackets ultimately lost 3-2 in overtime, but Westminster is in first place in 10-3 overall and 3-0 in PAC play. They then move on. They're going to play Bethany this week, and they should beat Bethany, really. Bethany hasn't been very good this year. They're 3-9 overall and winless in the PAC. They're also on a 7-game losing streak in which they have only scored 4 goals in that time frame, and they have been shut out in 4 of those games, and they're coming off a shutout loss against Chatham, 7-0. Then they'll go on to play Teal this Saturday, which is another game that the Jackets should win, as Teal is 2-8 and 3 overall and 1-1 in the PAC.
Thanks, Dakota. Now we will go from the soccer field to the tennis court, I should say, when we come back on Jacket Sports Weekly.
Pretty much a good day for me would be people leaving their hands off of me. I'm always called names. Everywhere that I go, there's always someone calling me names, calling me gay. I've been choked, thrown up against a wall, punched. Nobody's ever tried to help me.
Now it's time to talk some tennis with Bruce Davidson, our tennis analyst on JSW. The women's team struggling lately.
Yeah, the women's team is trying to get off of a 3-match losing streak, all of them 9-0 scores, losing to Mount Aloysius, Westminster, and W&J. They took on Bethany yesterday at 4 in a game that they were hoping could get them back on their feet. Bethany is also tied with Waynesburg at 0-5 in the bottom of the PAC conference standings. The only difference between the two teams is Waynesburg is 2-6 overall and Bethany is 3-10, so that's not saying much considering Waynesburg obviously wants more production out of all of their players.
So what do you think Waynesburg needs to do to get a PAC win moving forward?
I think they need to be strong in doubles play with Noelle Hughes and Kylie Schmidt, and then if they can, win 2 out of the 3 doubles matches and go even in singles, I mean, that gives you a 5-4 win. That's just, you want to build something before their final match of the season against Teal.
Now let's briefly touch on the men's team, who is 3-1 overall right now, but their fall season is over. They split at the W&J Invitational. What can you say about that?
Yeah, the men's team is going to be off until February 16th until they go at Penn State Barron. In their last time out, they split at the W&J Invitational with a 6-3 loss to the host presidents, but an 8-1 win over the Pitt Greensburg Bobcats. Jonah Cooper and Josh Denham won the first doubles match 8-2, and then it was just all hats off from there.
Yeah, and so they will, as Bruce said, their fall part of the season is over. They'll look to get back into it later on in the school year. When we come back, Joe Smeltzer will sit down. He'll have our interview with Aubrey Wingart.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly. I'm Joe Smeltzer here with freshman Waynesburg University cross-country runner Aubrey Wingart. So you're from Virginia, which isn't that close to Pennsylvania. So how did you get to Waynesburg University?
Well, Coach Hardy, his recruiting played a big role in that. He sent me a lot of letters and came to a few of my meets, which meant a lot to me.
So you're a marine biology major. How was that major at Waynesburg? How did that kind of influence your decision to come here?
Well, Waynesburg is a small school, and I really liked that small school atmosphere, and it had my program.
All right. So how did you develop kind of a passion for distance running?
Well, it started because I didn't want to dance anymore, and I danced for 10 years, and my parents told me that if I was going to quit dance, I had to start running. So I started running, and I really enjoyed running with all my friends, and it kind of gave me a stress reliever from all the stuff that was going on during school and stuff.
And has it been a stress reliever for you as a freshman in college as well?
A little. I mean, I'm a little stressed out with running as well, but it does help out at the end of the day. After it gives me a little break from all the schoolwork. So.
Now you've developed into one of the team's top runners right away as a freshman. Being that you have such an important role on the team as an underclassman, has that put any added pressure on you this season?
It's definitely put a lot of pressure on me. I know my time has to drop in order to reach the team's end goals. So.
And what would you say the team's end goals are? I'm assuming a third straight PAC championship, probably.
Yeah, we want a three-peat PAC champs, and we want to try to qualify for nationals as a team. So.
And what do you think the keys are going to be to winning a PAC championship and eventually getting the nationals, which the team has never done collectively before?
For PACs, I know we have to be tight. The top 5, top 7, we have to be tight, and we have to keep training hard and trusting the coaches and the process. So.
Okay, so Waynesburg's had a few runners qualify for nationals individually in the past. Julie Gerber did it 4 years ago. Emily and Katie Latimer did it 2 years ago. Has qualifying for nationals individually, if not this year, then sometime in the next 3 years, has that crossed your mind at all? Is that something that you and Coach Hardy have ever talked about?
I'm more focused on getting the team to nationals. So I want to do my best to help get the team to nationals, not necessarily go individually, but as a team. So I think if we are healthy and we run our best race at regionals, we can make it to nationals.
So how healthy has the team been thus far this season? I know health's a big thing in all sports, and cross country is no exception. So would you say the team's been hampered by injuries thus far?
We've had quite a few injuries. I know two of our top 7 couldn't finish those races this past weekend, but I know the coaches are doing their best to help them recover, so that way we can have our best team put forth at regional.
So what do you think are going to be the keys for PACs in general? I know that's a few weeks ahead, but is that something that you've thought about thus far, or do you think more about like the next week's race and kind of worry about that?
Well, we do think about PACs, but I think we're taking it one race at a time. Next week, I think we're just trying to work on our times and take down some of the nationally ranked teams.
Thank you for your time, Aubrey. When we come back, Hugh and Dylan will break down the top 5 athletes of the week right here on Jacket Sports Weekly.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Welcome back. Now it's time for our top 5 athletes of the week. I'm going ahead and start first, but my top 5, all of them have been on Jacket Sports Weekly as the weekly interview over the past 2 years. My number 5, Jordan Wiley, has led the team in kills each of the past games this week. Jill Moyer having a goal over the week. She is my number 4. And number 3, Tyler Perrone, 222 yards, 2 total touchdowns, no interceptions. That's big for him. Aubrey Wingart, 15th overall over the weekend at the cross-country meet, and then number 1, Andrew Brinsick. We continuously see him. We saw him a couple weeks ago, game-clinching interception for the football team.
Mine are similar, Hugh, but a couple of changes. We're going to start with my number 5. That's Tyler Perrone. He's finally found his groove as the starting quarterback for the Jackets. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 in the air on Saturday. Olivia Zucchelli is my number 4 from the volleyball team. She might be the most consistent player on that team right now, averaging 7.54 digs per set. So definitely a supporting factor of that team. Sophomore Nate Jesselin of the men's cross-country team is next. He's been a strong leader of the sophomore class, which has just helped this cross-country team thrive week in and week out. The senior Andrew Brinsick, he's my number 2. 7 tackles and an interception, his second interception on the season this past week. Just really helped close the game out against Carnegie Mellon. And my number 1, our interview today, Aubrey Wingart, top finisher for the Jackets, placing 15 out of 245 runners. That is no small task She is my number one.
That's going to do it for this week's episode. No episode next week due to fall break. We will be back the following week to recap all the things in sports that have happened over the past 2 weeks. This has been Jacket Sports Weekly. For Dylan Cleland, I'm Hugh O'Neill. Have a great week.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.